Thank you. Good evening to all of you. When we started this entire pantheon of Tycons in Kerala in 2012, during one of those initial sessions, we wrote down a wish list of speakers and a wish list of topics as well. One of the topics was family business. And one of the speakers that we wrote down in 2012 was Rahul Maman. We tried reaching him here and there. And of course, I met him personally as well. But we are really, really proud to have him today in our midst. And we are expectantly waiting to hear him as well. I have a brief introduction of Rahul, and it's rather brief. Rahul serves as the managing director of MRF. He's done his BA Economics honors from Stephens in Delhi. After his graduation, he completed his MA in Economics from the University of Madras and subsequently did his master's in business administration at the University of Michigan Business School in the US, Ann Arbor. He was previously vice president corporate planning and development in the company for about 7 years. He has the experience in all the departments such as planning, production, finance, project execution of the company. I don't need to introduce MRF to you. All of you know MRF much before the stock markets became fashionable and glamorous. MRF was there, and it had created value for its shareholders right from those days. So we are again. I must say that as a personal milestone for TiE and the Tycon events, we are really proud to have Rahul with us today. In terms of the format, we'll have Rahul speaking to you, and then we close after that. And we don't have a Q&A today, and we request all of you to send in your questions. Those of you who are online, do post your questions. And those of you who are out here, use the chits to give the questions out here. We will have all the questions curated and sent to Rahul. And then we will see how we can reach some of the answers to you as well. Thanks a lot. Rahul. Ladies and gentlemen, Rahul Maman. He has a presentation.
Evening. So firstly, thank you very much for calling me for the conference. I have to confess, this is very unusual for me because I hardly speak outside MRF. So the only subject I know is tires. So when my aunt asked me first, I was quite reluctant. But for those of you who know my aunt Pangam, she's a very difficult person to say no to. So here I am. So first, I must compliment TiE for the great work you're doing helping entrepreneurs. Right? I'm a huge fan of first generation entrepreneurs. While those of us in the second and third generation do face challenges, I think they pale in comparison to what the first generation has to overcome when forming their companies. The daily struggle for survival, the superhuman efforts you've taken to service your first customers. When I hear these stories, I'm absolutely overwhelmed. And I'm standing here today only because of the efforts of a first generation entrepreneur. I would say actually two, my grandfather and my grandmother. So on behalf of everybody in the second and third generation, big thank you to all of you for giving us this tremendous foundation to build on. So thank you very much. So when I was kind of reflecting on what I could talk about, I kind of went back and thought about the immense passion and commitment my grandfather had for MRF, the company he founded for and ran for 50 years. And whenever he would speak to us, he made it very clear that his aspiration was for the company to succeed over multiple generations. That was his expectation. And he believed that the future leaders should have the same passion and commitment. So I've always been in awe of these companies who are more than 100 years old and still at the top of the industry. If you consider what they've been through world wars, they've been through globalization, they've been through intense technological revolutions, but they've evolved, innovated, and still are leaders in the industry. Truly remarkable companies. So it's a subject of great interest to me. And I thought I'll just share with you my learnings from observing these companies and what we could do to try and help build enduring companies. Next slide, please. The first thing which comes to my mind when I look at these companies is all of them are absolutely clear on what their purpose and values are. By purpose, I mean is what is the reason of the company's existence? What excites them? And values, by values, I mean, what are the behaviors they expect their employees to exhibit when trying to achieve their purpose? So it's very interesting when a company is first founded, all the founding members are very clear about their purpose and values because they live it and breathe it day after day. But as the company grows and you have influx of new people coming in, this gets diluted. And that's why it's very, very important for us to constantly restate our purpose and values. And I feel purpose and values serve as a guidepost to help leaders make some very difficult decisions. Every day at work, we are making decisions which have trade-offs. It's either product performance versus cost, it's employee welfare versus profit, it's profit versus community. These are tough decisions which have trade-offs and not very easy to make. But I believe if you have a very clear set of purpose and values, which people understand, these decisions become much, much easier. Yeah. So I thought I'll just share with you a few examples of companies who have really made it a point to focus on purpose and values. The first company is Johnson & Johnson, a firm we all recognize, we all admire. It was founded in 1886. So today it's 135 years old. It was founded by the Johnson brothers. And they had a very, very simple purpose statement. It was to alleviate pain and disease. A very simple, but extremely powerful purpose. Yeah, next slide. In 1943, the third CEO, Robert Johnson II, took it further and published something called the Credo, where he gave a very clear list of priorities of all the important stakeholders. He made it very clear. The most important stakeholder for them was their doctors and nurses, patients, mothers and fathers. Second priority goes to employees, third to the communities, and finally to the stockholders. To me, this document made it so simple for all future leaders. When they're taking their decisions, which have trade-offs, they knew exactly what to do because the company had very clearly laid out on who gets first priority. Yeah, next slide. And what's fascinating to me is this company has had 9 CEOs so far, out of which only three were from the family. So we had 6 CEOs from outside. And these CEOs were even more passionate about the Credo than the founders. In fact, Harvard Business School has done a case study on Johnson & Johnson on how these leaders emphasize the Credo and make it a live document day in and day out. Yeah, next slide. And if you look how the company has evolved, it's a tremendous journey. They started off with Band-Aid, first aid kits. And today, if you look at them, they have the next slide. They have a very strong consumer healthcare business. They make cutting-edge medical devices and pharmaceutical products, not to forget the world-famous single-shot Johnson & Johnson vaccine. It's a truly remarkable evolution. And I believe it's because of the strong emphasis they had on their purpose and their values. I think it really inspired this company to do extraordinary things. And I think it's a great example of what having a strong purpose and values could do for us. Right? Next. The second example of a company is the Malayalam Manorama. My uncle, Mr. Philip Matthews, here today. It's a great privilege to have an organization within our family which is 133 years old. In fact, it's just 2 years younger than Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson was founded in 1886 and Manorama was founded in 1888. And for any company to prosper for 133 years and still be a leader in the industry is something remarkable. One of my favorite books is a book called Built to Last by Jim Collins, where he lists these companies out. And I believe Manorama should be on the list. To be a leader after 133 years is exceptional. The next slide. And when I look at the Manorama, what stands out to me is the emphasis the leadership of the organization has made to restate their purpose and values. Now, if you analyze the editorials, the first editorials of the last 3 chief editors, the first was my granduncle, K.M. Cherian in 1954. followed by my granduncle K.M. Matthew in 1973, and then my uncle Marwan Matthew in 2010, you'll see a very common theme of purpose between all three articles: the development of Kerala, communal harmony, political stability, and finally, public trust and responsible journalism. These are very, I would say, noble and timeless purposes. And to me, a big factor of Manorama's success is the way the leadership of the newspaper has ensured that they strive towards these purposes. Next slide, please. My granduncle K.M. Matthew took it a step further when he published his autobiography, The Eighth Ring. Thankfully, for people like me, it was translated to English. But I view The Eighth Ring as a gift to the younger generation of this family. And the reason I say this is when you read the book, you understand what our family went through in terms of success, how they reacted to success, how they reacted to failure, and more importantly, how they stood up to challenges. And for a young leader in the family today, this gives us perspective on how we handle challenges facing us. It's not only that, my granduncle also made it a point to tell us on what he considers the most important values. And one of the chapters which really stuck with me was when he said that we should never, ever forget the people who helped us when we were in trouble and when nobody else helped us. The value of gratefulness, something which is very simple, but I can assure you people often forget when their heads are swimming in the clouds of success. I really hope that the Eighth Ring will be a guidepost for all future leaders of our family. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. So now I come to MRF, the company I've been fortunate to work for the last 18 years. Compared to Manorama and Johnson & Johnson, we're a baby, only 75 years old, but still a remarkable story. We're very proud of our humble beginnings as a toy balloon factory in my grandfather's house to become India's largest tire company. It's really an inspirational story for all of us working at MRF. And to me, if I have to describe the story, I would say it's a story of a remarkable leader who inspired his team to do things which they thought were not possible. And if you ask me at MRF what we are passionate about or what our purpose is, the next slide, please. It's product superiority. We want to make the best performing products in every segment we operate in. And we believe that our products will have an extremely positive impact on the lives of our customers. The next slide. I'm sure all of you are thinking, yes, Johnson & Johnson, Manorama, yes, has an impact on people's lives, but why tires? But please, I would like you to put yourself in the shoes of a small transporter who has just two small light trucks transporting perishable goods like vegetables. He has to make his monthly EMI. And for him, the most important thing is to get from point A to point B on time. He goes through very difficult roads. And the last thing he wants is a tire failure, which will cause the vehicle to stop and the vegetables to get spoiled. That'll be a catastrophic loss for him. And that's where we come in. We push our teams for this particular segment to make the tires with the best possible endurance. I just want to share a quote one of these transporters gave us a couple of weeks ago. The next slide, please. This is Mr. Rajkumar. He's a transporter in UP. And this is what he had to say about MRF. He said, I trust MRF tires so completely that I do not even carry a spare tire. It's trust like this which drives us. And it's trust like this which pushes our team to keep pushing the envelope on product performance. The next slide, please. It's a very fascinating business to be in because as a tire company, you might think it's only tires, but for us, we are serving so many different customer segments, from two-wheelers to auto rickshaws to mining machines, farm tires, and finally the Sukhoi fighter jet. Each of these segments have very distinct performance requirements. We have different competitors, and our purpose is to have the best performing products by a mile compared to competition in each and every segment. It's a very difficult purpose to have because we have very tough competitors, but that's what drives our competitive juices. Next slide, please. So everything you see about MRF outside, whether it's our brand communication, whether it's our distribution network, whether it's our plants, they're all supporting actors to the one central purpose of selling the best possible products. So what do we as a leadership group have to do? Our job is to consistently reinstate this purpose. This is what we stand for, and make sure that every action we take is in line with that purpose. Next slide. So my view is that all successful companies have very clear purpose and values. It's really up to us to discover them and keep talking about them and ensure that all our actions are consistent with them. Because I believe that it's these purpose and values which make our companies unique. And unless we are passionate about them and we don't follow through with them, very soon you'll be like any other company and you will not stand out. Next. The next, I think, characteristic I see in truly great companies is the ability to embrace failures. And I feel this is extremely important for any company. Next slide. It's very interesting when a company starts, in the initial stage, failures are a part of life, and people embrace failures day in and day out because they haven't figured out what's happening. They're learning, and every failure is taken as a step to improve their process. But as the company evolves, stabilizes, finds its niche, failures start coming down. And soon they become very rare. And at that point when failures happen, they're more often than not used as opportunities to find scapegoats and victimize people, which to me is a very, very dangerous situation to be in. The implications are far-reaching. Next slide. Because if you go into that culture, it's very clear that people stop taking risks. Innovation doesn't happen because innovation without failure is just not possible. There's a tendency to suppress bad news because when people know you react badly to bad news, they stop telling you, and that can be catastrophic. You use precious time to make corrective actions. And finally, when change happens, your company is just really scared of making change. And this is not something no organization wants to happen. And you will not be able to be successful over a long time if you have this type of environment. So what can we do about this? Yeah, next slide, please. I think it's about developing the right mindset. There's a fascinating book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. In fact, this is the book the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, used extensively when he took over Microsoft. And where she describes the mindset to develop as the growth mindset. Next slide. And in the growth mindset, what she says is a person with a growth mindset believes that talent and capability can be improved through sheer effort. People with a growth mindset are willing to try things which are outside their comfort zone, stretch themselves, and when they fail, they take failure as an input to improve and achieve higher goals. In my view, if you don't have the growth mindset, it's going to be very difficult to succeed going forward. And as parents, I think irrespective whether we want our children to join the business or not, I think it's up to us to really try and help our children develop a growth mindset. And the author has made it very clear that parents play a huge role in developing the right mindset of the children. And what she says is that it's essential that we push our kids to try and do things outside their comfort zone. And when they fail, we have to have the patience and time to sit with them and understand the process which they prepared and help them work in a smarter way to achieve it next time. And even when they succeed, what she says is, it's important to identify the process which helped them succeed. So they realize it's the effort that counted to achieve it. I know it's heartbreaking sometimes to see our children suffer setbacks, but I think it's the least we can do. And if you ask me, I don't think anybody knows today on what skills are required to make the next 10 to 15 years. The only skill I feel which is relevant is the ability to constantly learn and adapt yourself. And for that, you do need a growth mindset. Next. In fact, when I prepared this, my son Aditya came and told me, I said, Appa, a lot of kids are not going to like you. But I feel we have no choice but really, really push them hard. Right? Next. I think the same principle goes when you're initiating the next generation to business. Now, when I look at first generation entrepreneurs, I see them as battle-scarred warriors. They've overcome so many challenges, and these challenges have shaped their personalities. So when I see them, I don't see them getting hassled when things go wrong, and they have the tenacity and courage to always fight back. And it's because what they've gone through. They've seen it all, and they have a supreme confidence in themselves to take anything which hits them. Now, when the next generation comes in, invariably they have not gone through the same challenges. So my only request to the early generation is be patient and allow them to learn from their failures. And to give a context, I'll just share a quote from my granduncle's book, The Eighth Ring, next, where he talks about his elder brother, K.M. Cherian. And just to give you a context, when my granduncle came to Manorama, I think he was around 37 years old, and his brother K.M. Cherian was the chief editor. There was a very large age gap, so he viewed him more as a father figure. And this is what he had to say. This is K.M. Cherian, was always open to listening to new ideas and implementing them. He would never question me unnecessarily if I broached a new idea. He would never undermine my confidence. If I did something stupid, he would exclaim, "Ayo," and then quickly add, "Never mind, what is past. Let me decide what to do about it now." This response gave me strength. If he had criticized every blunder I made in detail and found fault with me at every stage, I would have reached nowhere in my life. This to me was a very powerful statement. I don't know how many of you have met my granduncle, Mr. K.M. Pathew, but he was an incredible man, absolutely incredible. I enjoyed every minute I could spend time with him. And for a person like him to say that a large part of his personality and confidence was shaped by the way his brother encouraged him, it shows us the tremendous responsibility we have when getting the next generation into the business. We have to be extremely patient and encouraging. And to the second generation, all I can say is a lot of us feel that if we share the same name as the founder, we are born leaders. That is just not true. Leadership comes from experience. By thinking that, we are putting way too much pressure on ourselves. We have to learn the hard way, just like anybody else. And when we do start working, and we are going to fail, at that point, what I've learned is the best thing is to own your failures. Own your failures in front of the entire team and tell them what you learned from them. By this way, you will get tremendous respect from your teams and even encourage them to open up about their failures, and it will improve the risk-taking in the organization. Next slide, please. Having said that, I think it's essential that we create an environment in the organization where people are allowed to experiment in a safe manner. As our companies grow, the stakes are higher. Failures can become very expensive. So while we fail in the way that the company is still safe and protected from financial risk. And for any company to succeed in the long run, we have to believe in continuous improvement. Whatever product you're selling, unless you're constantly pushing performance levels every year, you will not be able to succeed. And the only way is to improve continuously. And in my experience, the best way to do that is to allow constant experimentation. And experimentation by definition means that you do not know what the outcome is. So when you experiment, you're bound to fail. But what I've learned is the beauty about allowing people to push the envelope on their knowledge, experiment and fail. Invariably, they learn something from those failures. And from those learnings, they were always able to produce a product which they never could before. And this creates a very, very powerful innovation engine. And it's really up to us to create this environment where it keeps happening day in and day out. And from my experience, I think there are a few key takeaways I've learned, which I'd like to share with you. Next slide, please. You have to provide extra bandwidth to employees to experiment. If you expect the same person who is meeting very tight customer deadlines to experiment, it will just not happen. Either you ensure that you have a policy where everybody is given time for experimentation, or you have a separate team whose only job is to do cutting edge experimentation, and their learnings are transferred to others who are servicing customers day in and day out. This could happen in any product, either products or technology. This could work. Second is, for anybody who's doing experimentation, he needs to be able to make the product fast and get quick feedback. So as an organization, we have to provide the infrastructure which allows them to do that. And today with cloud computing, I think simulation has become very accessible to most companies. And through simulation, we can experiment much faster. And through latest technologies, you can make prototypes also much faster. We at MRF invest a lot of money to allow our engineers to experiment and get results much quicker. And we are seeing very good results because of that. The third point is, while you might experiment and while you might fail, we have to have foolproof testing protocols to make sure that the products which go to market are extensively tested. We do not want to experiment with our customers. Experiments are tried, tested, and evaluated within the company. But when it goes to a customer, we take no risk. You have to have foolproof testing protocols. The bigger you are, the costlier it is for a failure there. And finally, I think the most important point is, as a leader, you have to spend time with these teams to celebrate both the success and the learnings from failures. Only then will they realize that the work they're doing is really important. Next slide. A company which has mastered the art of experimentation is 3M. They're probably one of the most innovative companies in the world. And the reason they do it is they have made experimentation a way of life. If you look at the Post-it note, the Scotch tape, and the Scotch-Brite, are all results of engineers just trying different things in the lab. There was no big plan or big idea. It just came out of experimentation. And from what I've seen, Indian engineers are remarkably talented. If you give them the space and you allow them the freedom to try out things, what they can come up with is truly remarkable. And I believe if you can create the environment, you will have many innovation engines in India, just like 3M. Finally, I think the one characteristic I see across all great companies is an intense focus on leadership development. For any company to succeed over a long time, you have to have a very, very strong pipeline of leaders. And the one leader, next slide. And I think the leader who really brought the entire focus on leadership development was Jack Welch. Go to the next slide. So he wanted to make GE a people factory during his tenure. And he said, his objective was to make people GE's core competence. I can assure you, if you read any annual report of any company, you will see terms like people are our most important asset, we love our people, everybody says it. But a very few companies actually act that way. And the truly great companies are the ones who do that. And to me, the best way to evaluate that is to see how much time does a leader spend on people development. And what struck me about Jack Welch was that particular aspect. Next slide, please. So Jack Welch, as the leader of GE, would have a 1 full day session at every major business location of GE, only discussing talent at that location. To put things in perspective, GE is a huge organization. They had multiple businesses in multiple locations, but he would go spend 1 full day in every location talking about who the strong leaders are and what they need to improve. And then he should have 2 follow-up sessions after that, ensuring the actions that decided happened. That to me is true commitment. And more than that, he should spend 8 hours training his leaders at the management center every month. And through that, he trained 18,000 of his employees personally. That to me is a leader who's serious about leadership development. Now, and I feel a good experiment for all of us, the next slide please, is if you look at our calendars and actually calculate how much time we spend on operational issues and how much time we spend on people development. I can assure you it'll be shocking. I'm embarrassed to put my score up there, but most people I talk to is absolutely shocking. This is not rocket science. We all know that they have to spend time here. So why doesn't it happen? Next slide, please. I believe it's at the root of who we are. I think we just managers love execution. Managers love brainstorming and problem solving. This is what drives us. This is what drives our egos. And this is what we love getting credit. We love it so much that we like adding to the projects we do. We just keep adding. And before we know it, we have no time for anything else. So 2 things happen here. 1, you have no time to develop people. 2, you also become less effective. I think to me, if you want a good benchmark, a good benchmark to decide whether you're doing too much and you're becoming less effective is to ask your family at home if you're being extra grumpy. When that happens, I can assure you that you're doing too much. And the solution to that is very simple. I think we have no choice. It's simple solutions, but we have to do it. Next slide, please. We have to create more time by delegating. That's as simple as that. We know it. So my advice would be make a list of projects you're currently tracking, knock off 30% as the first stage, give it to some talented leaders. Believe me, we have talented leaders. And I'm not saying don't review the project, but I would say just review it only with them. Then use that opportunity to actually coach them and guide them. So 2 things happen. The project moves on, And second, you're able to assess new leaders and coach them to be better leaders. Then I feel all of us have to have extremely structured reviews of talent like what we saw in GE. The structure can be tuned to what we do, but it has to be taken extremely seriously. Like how we review sales or product development, talent reviews has to be given the number one priority. And that the only person who can decide that is leader of the organization, you. If you do it, everybody else will do it. Next slide, please. Now, I saw a very interesting quote by Professor Clayton M. Christensen. He's the author of the book, The Innovator's Dilemma, where he wrote an article on how will you measure your life. And he answered his own question, and he said that the only metric that will truly matter to my life are the individuals whom I've been able to help one by one to become better people. And in my view, that is also the true legacy of a leader. If a leader wants to measure himself, ultimately, the answer is how many leaders you have to create. Like when I talk to people in MRF who worked with my grandfather, they never talked about how he increased market share or how he reduced cost. They only told me on how he inspired them to be better leaders. And that's what it is. I mean, as leaders, we have to decide it's no longer about us, but it's about them. And if we get that mindset right, I think it goes a long way to create a very strong benchmark of leaders who will drive your organization going forward. So to put it all together, if I were to visualize a company which has very strong, where every employee is very clear on what their purpose and values are, where the employees are willing to take risks and take failures as stepping steps to improve themselves, and have a very strong talent pipeline, I can say this should be a great place to work for. And the probability of that company doing well is very, very good. But I also have to say, to get there requires a lot of patience and persistence. And there's no other way of doing that. And as long as you accept that it's a journey, there's no final destination, and you're willing to get it out, it is possible. So I like to wish you all the best. And I really hope that with God's blessings, that many of us here will be able to do our bit and help build enduring companies which people in Kerala, India, and the world will be proud of. Thank you very much.